is the show that has hosted everyone from Sugar Ray Leonard to Keith One-Time Thurman. This is Tough Talk Tonight, brought to you by Heavy Bag Boxing.
Welcome to Tough Talk Tuesday. As always, I'm your host, Lucas Biggers. Alongside me is Robert Alexander, Score A, James D. What's up, guys?
Well, good.
Excited.
All right. Me too. We're on the eve, basically, eve show anyway, of the fight that we've guys been dreaming about for quite some time. We finally get some answers, guys. And I know we want to talk about it immediately, but we're going to wait a little bit. Let's talk about what happened this weekend first. Let's talk Hughes. Was he robbed against Kambosos?
Absolutely. I mean, ain't that how Mayweather say it? Absolutely. I mean, it was terrible. I mean, it wasn't even close. And the decisions the judges' cards had it as if it was Kambosos that was the dominant performer in that fight. I know Tulsa, so we're talking Oklahoma. They don't do a lot of fight cards. They've been doing more lately, but they need to get it together. Them judges need to go back into some type of training program because you can't even. They have not one leg to stand on as far as explanations for how that went down.
I scored it for Maxi Hughes, and so did most people, and we just keep seeing this over and over. I mean, we've had this conversation on this show many times. They're in Oklahoma, and maybe they were in Nebraska or wherever they were, or I forget what state it was, but we just keep seeing this in multiple states, not just Midwest or whatever it is.
It's a boxing problem. Do I lead in to say corruption? I don't know. It's a matter of, like Sakura said, it definitely could be just out of practice, but I don't know. That's hard to come by. I mean, you can put two people that probably have never seen a full boxing match, have them judge and not fuck that up. You know what I mean?
I call it blatant corruption.
Yeah. I mean, and this is a problem that's rampant. We can see it at the small levels. We can see it at the high levels, but it's always on the A side. Never
pretty sad state of affairs when the promoters, they have that leverage over these boxing commissions in states that they don't normally go because they want them to come back and continue to do business with them. So it's like an unheard culture, it's an unspoken culture, I believe, where it's like they're so eager to please the A side, or in this case, it definitely wasn't A side, but they are so eager to please the promoter's boxer. And I think that's how this happens because the eagerness to continue to get business by that big promoter is there. So you have to know that that's part of it. But then also it's some rust in there too, where these judges, they're scoring Kambosos because maybe he's forcing the action in a particular round, but then at the same time he's not landing anything. I mean, Hughes was the aggressor at times, plus he was actually landing more punches per round. I mean, what is there to even to debate?
Well, to your point, there's no consensus there. 117, 113, just ridiculous. And then there's another one that had it tied, and then another one that was a little bit closer. So, these guys are not even in the same building. And then another thing is that Kambosos has been a good soldier for Top Rank. He went up against Lopez and Juan and Teofimo, that is. Then he also, had his two fights with Haney. So he's been a good earner. He's been a good soldier for Top Rank. They just threw him a dog biscuit here, but he got whooped.
And I want some of these other stars, like they say they want to fight the best in their division. I love that about a boxer like Shakur Stevenson. But when you sit there and you see someone that, just beat a name like Kambosos, they go a little carrot out there. It's like, I'd rather fight, Maxi right now than Kambosos, like his name should have been in the conversation. And if there's no more opponents before I fight Kambosos, I really, would try my luck with Hughes. I mean, because that right there is like acknowledging. I give Shakur credit because he did acknowledge, like, I don't know how they came up, how the judges came up with that score, but he also acknowledged, like, dude, you're not on my level, when he's talking to Kambosos after the fight, which was great, by the way, the fact that we got to hear all that. But I just don't understand how, some of these boxers like Maxi, they put in the hard work, and he was confident from the get-go as far as his abilities to beat Kambosos. And then when he doesn't get the decision, do we not talk about Maxi's, performance? I'm not saying he's like a prize type fighter, but when they hustle and grind and work hard to beat somebody like a Kambosos, I mean, there should be some benefit in it, even if you don't get that. If they're gonna rob you of the win, they should be doing something to where these particular boxers' names are risen up in a way, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you do
I mean,
that? I mean, what are we doing here?
I mean, that's basically what we do with these shows, and that's what
Yeah,
a lot of media tries to do. But the problem still is it doesn't matter. It's all going to go down in history as if Kambosos won that fight, and there's
Yeah.
nothing any of us can do except if you're listening, actually complain and see if we can't get some of these judges, looked at. You have to write your state commissions. Make sure your voice is heard because
Yeah, and I'm
this is
hoping he
what's
gets some
killing
more fights
boxing
too.
on an international level. I mean, this is boxing's cancer, right? It's ate its way to a point where it's not an Olympic sport anymore, and we just keep watching it and keep watching it, and nothing else.
Well, I'm hoping he does get some more calls for additional fights in that weight division as some type of benefit in people and the boxing community or the boxing industry to know that, yeah, like he was better than Cambosis is right now, So
I agree. Let's talk about the performance itself. So, were you guys thinking Maxi was on? Was it just Kambosos who had an off night? What was going on, guys? Let's break it down.
I think it's a combination of both because Maxi was really taking it to him, and he's not a hard puncher. So if he was, he may have taken him out. Cambosos' power certainly wasn't there, and I think that's you would have to attribute some of that to Maxi's style. So it's a combination. He's
he outboxed him.
he has a nice style. I like it. He's kind of fluid. He comes in a lot, moves a lot. Um, he's okay to watch. I just don't agree with any of this shit.
I like Maxi's performance. He knew how to get to Cambosis, and he was countering a lot whenever Cambosis was throwing. But then he had to start being the aggressor because Cambosis just stopped throwing. I mean, he wasn't doing any type of offense. And I don't know. I'm starting to wonder now after 3 fights and 3 losses. Like, I mean, was that TO fight too much for him? Like, he won the fight and it was a masterful, probably like a highlight of his career type of night in that performance.
Are
But
you saying is that the best he can get?
no, what I'm saying is I feel like Tio did still do some damage to him. like that was a rough fight for him towards the end. I remember him looking like he was the beat up fighter. Like he looked like he was the one that lost the fight. I remember that. And I'm saying was that fight, even though he won the fight, was it too much for him? What was it a situation where it did diminish him as a fighter? Because by the time he got to Devin Haney, the first fight, that was a blowout just based on jabs. And then in the second fight, of course, the champion, which was Haney, he made it look even easier, but also put some more combinations together on Cambosis. He wasn't able to do much in that fight either. So is this a worn fighter at this point? Because we're in the third fight now, that he's had since that champion win, and he's not looking like the same type of fighter at all that he was in that fight. That's my point.
I would agree with that.
Well, I'll answer it this way. One of the things that I'm trying to work on better for myself is going back and looking at fights, older fights, and kind of changing up and getting more of a realistic opinion on what went down. Right. So honestly, and taking it back to that Teofimo Lopez fight with Kambosos, Teo fought the wrong fight. And there was issues at hand where he was fighting for his life.
Yeah, injury.
Health-wise, and he didn't know it. And I say that by saying Kambosos barely won the fight.
So you're saying Kambosos is a fluke. The win over Teo was a fluke.
And he just showed us why that's a fluke. I feel very bad for Maxi.
Flukes count.
I feel very bad for Maxi because this is a fighter who felt like this was his last shot. Now, I think given the way he fought, he'll get other fights here. But he should get other fights as a strong contender, not as a guy who just lost his last fight. He deserved to win that fight. He put his heart into it, and he gave us his best performance. Anybody around the kid has said that this was the best performance they've ever seen him put on. So instead of taking that confidence and going into a next fight as a victorious against a fluke fighter, he now has to go into proving himself once again in other fights.
Yeah, it would be great if the system worked and he could just appeal the fight. They could watch it with 3 actual competent judges and then, correct it. Or at least change it to a no contest, order an immediate rematch, whatever.
But see, the problem is, and I'm sorry to interrupt, guys, the Maxi Hughes is a high-risk, low-reward fighter. And the worst thing that could actually happen to him is actually losing that fight and getting robbed. Because because promoters and matchmakers are going to have an excuse to duck him. So he might not even get the fights that he wants because of that. It's a shame, but that happens in boxing all the time. Guys who almost spoiled a top contender or a champion and, they got quote unquote robbed. And the next thing you know, they can't get a fight because, they're high risk, low reward. So unfortunately, it may be a curse for Maxi Hughes that he looked good against Kambosos, came up short, because now who's going to want to fight him? You know what I mean? Like, who's going to be like, oh, yeah, I'm going to give Maxi Hughes a shot, the guy that gave Kambosos, all kinds of problems. And a lot of people say who won that fight.
And to piggyback off of that, also, Jules, the flip side to that coin is he doesn't get that caliber of a fighter. But then you throw him to, like, say, a gatekeeper, somebody like a Pedraza or something like that, where he's in a fight that means much less than this bout, but it's even competition that he very well could still lose. So, that RP, yeah.
Yeah, let's read the comments here. Let's see. Mike Ortiz says David Sutherland going to be one of the judges on Crawford versus Spence. They need to fire him ASAP.
Here we go.
And sadly, though, he had a draw. So at least he was the closest.
Yeah, those 2 or 3 that were shitty.
Yeah. So at least he had a draw. He had a close fight.
He was like, I'm not going to be the one to take the fall for this.
That's you two. Yeah.
You guys can deal with that. Hughes, I be watching a lot of the British fights on, the app that I don't like, the Zone. But I did want to just say, like, Hughes is like that type of, like you said, company. Usually he's a guy that you would bring in as a B-side fighter, and he hasn't looked as good as he did in this Kambosos fight. And it was because he was so confident that he saw a flaw in Kambosos he thought that he would be able to, capitalize on, which ended up being the truth. So that shows that he has the capacity to, do his own strategies and, actually come up with a good game plan against some of these boxers. I don't think that the topper echelons of that division should be, too worried about him being high, like a high risk, low reward. I think the problem is when these matchmakers are now trying to make fights, they want every one of those fights to be with, two names. They want it to be like a more of a profitable endeavor. So by Maxi not having that much of a name, which he should be more known now that he fought Kambosos, who had a name, but at the same time, it's not as profitable. So those numbers and those statistics, as far as how many followers and how many people actually know Maxi Hughes and him being a British fighter, like all that comes into play when they're matchmaking these days. Like they're like really, statistically looking at, oh, is this a profitable fight? So I think that works against him more than any of these elite fighters really being scared of a Maxi Hughes.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And to piggyback off that, Sakura, like I was saying, he's high risk, low reward. Nobody's gonna want to take that chance. You know what I mean? Especially with a fighter. Let's say, for example, like honestly, they're not gonna put him against like Shakur Stevenson or a Devin Haney. You know what I mean? Like that's not gonna happen. Like undefeated young money makers. You know what I mean? Who like it's in your best interest to keep them undefeated.
Definitely agree with
Yeah,
you.
I don't think Maxi Hughes is in that category of beating any of those. That's why I was saying it, beating those type of elite fighters. But then it becomes an issue of Maxi Hughes not being a draw, a name that statistically matches up with the numbers of like a Shakur or a Haney, those fighters. But the problem right now in these divisions is a Shakur is having an issue, solidifying a deal with Haney or deal with Lomo or deal like it's hard to make these matches when these boxers are really avoiding somebody like Shakur. So he might be coming down to a opportunity where he is ending up needing to just take a fight to be busy or something like that. That's where someone like a Maxi Hughes might come into play. It's like
No, absolutely. I don't think Maxi Hughes
not gonna be a Shakur or some of these elite fighters, but he's a good name and he's a good draw to be brought in as a match for a bigger name when they can't solidify these bigger matchups.
No, understood. I don't think he beats him either. What I'm saying is that he's the type of what I mean by high risk, low reward is that he's the type of guy to make anyone look bad, even if you win. You know what I mean? Like nobody wants to see their popular fighter fight a guy who's very argued. It's like Emmanuel Augustus. That's what I'll give you an example of. Emmanuel Augustus was like that. Emmanuel Augustus was a guy where you just put him in, you know what I mean, just to get a name on a resume and get a fight. And Emmanuel Augustus took fights a week, 2 weeks, in advance, and he still made the top guys look bad. That's not a guy you want to fight. You know what I mean? No matter who you are, that's not a guy you want to fight. Floyd Mayweather, till this day, has said that's his toughest fight, and that fight was over 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's fair. Let's move on now. Let's talk more Inoue, the monster, just rampaging all over Fulton, stomping him in 8. Rob, you jumped right on. I can tell you're eager to talk about it.
I know, right? He popped up in.
Yeah, you just popped up as soon as I said, let's hear it.
First of all, the monster lived up to his name. He is a true monster.
Even though he's under 130, though.
He is a monster. He is a beast. Right. And I'm going to answer that question with Tim Bradley said today that he probably fizzles out at 1, meaning he probably stops at 130. So I'm already going to put him in as a top 130-pound fighter. That's how good,
basically.
That's how good I feel he is.
He is at 122 now. You are
that being said, Fulton didn't show up. I've seen Stephen Fulton multiple times now, and he's performed way better. Way, way better. So I don't know if it was the timing of the bout. He just wasn't used to it. The crowd got in his head. The training camp wasn't well. The postponement, maybe all of the above, but that was not a good show of performance from Stephen Fulton. Not even close.
What about the competition?
Right.
and here's why. Thanks for pointing that out, James. Here's why. Because he was outboxed from the start. Yep. He was out of that fight from round 1. And here's why I say all of this. The problem is he was definitely fighting scared. He did not throw punches and he would not engage. Now, if you do that after 3-4 rounds, I can understand because you definitely have tested some power. But out of the gate in round number 1, after round 1, you're not willing to engage in the fight, and he didn't engage the whole fight from round 1 to the finish. He didn't really engage. So I feel like he was a beaten fighter before he even stepped in the damn ring.
I just totally disagree with what you're saying.
Oh man, if you totally disagree, I double disagree.
Say what happened?
So
I said, if you disagree,
fans,
I happen to agree with your disagreement.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Okay. Well, Harvey, you speak then.
Hold on.
The
issue here, fans, is that my counterparts feel they want to speak on the right way here. So they feel that if you step in that ring, you deserve credit. If you go over to Japan, you deserve credit. Bullshit. You still need to fight the damn fight, especially if you're the unified world champ in that division. You need to show the hell up too. Don't just come and collect a paycheck.
Oh my God, that's not what Fulton was trying to do.
You can say engage all day, but man, your hands go and having to pay the price.
Like from round 1, it was like Inoue with the quickness. Okay, that kryptonite is how fast he is. He's beating him at Fulton's own game, which is the jab. And not only was it a jab, like it was like a power jab. I mean, that was a stingy, like pinpoint accurate jab. He was sticking out here.
Yeah.
And he was making it when you're any boxer, whether you're good or bad, if you're able to get off first consistently, you're gonna be in these exchanges where you're gonna win an exchange. And then Fulton, he's like in the mid-range. I didn't think that was the proper range, but at the same time, in the first couple of rounds, you're trying to hopefully wait off some of the steam of those, harder punches you think you might get. But I feel like it just, at a certain point, he tried a couple of strategies. I saw that. But when somebody is beating you first off every time you're engaging, and then he has power on top of it, plus you're trying to move, he already knows where you're about to go. Like he already he's trying to move, and it's like Inoue actually knows how to cut off the ring. So you're not gonna be able to outmaneuver him in ways. He knows your tricks. So I have to give Inoue a lot of credit, because coming into that fight, I felt that Fulton had a chance to win because I was basing it off him being able to establish his jab and use his movement, his lateral movement a lot, and just the way he's a slick boxer. But he can exchange on the inside usually against other opponents. Inoue took all that away from him. So it's not that Fulton came in and he wasn't prepared and ready and thinking that he would be able to impose his will in some type of way. It was that he was not able to. He got in there with a boxer that was totally superior on levels. It's like fighting a Roy Jones in there. And I don't like to use Roy Jones analogies that much. But when the early Roy Jones, you're against natural ability, natural skill, natural quickness, athleticism. You're not gonna beat those things just by being
Slow your roll, Sakura. Slow your roll. I love you to death, but slow your roll.
I'm not saying he's like.
Whoa.
I'm not saying he's on Roy Jones' level in the beginning of his career. I'm just
yeah, but that comparison alone.
Hold on, Jules. Let me finish my statement, please. What I'm saying is he had, out of those two fighters, the opponent, Fulton and him, he had superior quickness, superior talents, superior power. It's like things that you're not going to overcome usually if you're the boxer that doesn't have those particular skills too. You see what I'm saying?
Well, the way it looks right now is that Inoue just pitched a shutout. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And he made it look easy. I mean, he took a few shots. There's no question about it. Fulton did connect a few overhand rights.
Yeah.
In his own right, to his credit. But Inoue has got too much speed, too much power, too much of this, high IQ, really instinctive fighter. He's like the top of the heap right now. I think he's pound for pound number one, and that a lot is based on his intellect.
Pound for pound.
Oh, that's the argument. That's the argument we need to have.
Number one.
But I want to hear
pound for pound, baby. Pound for pound all day. Pound for pound all day. To me,
he's eating up his opponents.
Yeah, and you know what? The thing about a great fighter is like it's not sometimes the way that they do things, but it's I think they said it earlier, which makes a lot of sense. In order for you to become a great fighter, sometimes you need a great fighter to test you and to take it to the next level, and then you can showcase your level. And the crane will always rise to the top, and that's what will happen today. The whole thing about me is for Inoue to go up in weight, to like literally implement his game plan from day one,
right,
and separate himself from the rest, from the top of the top, and with that ease that he made it. You know what I'm saying? And man, it's kind of like what Shakura said. There's times out there that you're fighting a freak of nature.
Mm-hmm.
You're fighting a little monster right there. Mm-hmm. And you can be in your A game. You can be like the strongest, the fastest, your best shape ever. I'm sorry, you're not gonna be able to beat that type of talent, that type of speed, power. And for Inoue to basically do what he did with the ease that he did against a great fighter, hey man, that's when you say, hey, this guy is just a different breed. It's kind of like when we used to see Loma and the way that he was doing with all these champions and making them quit and making them look like average at the beginning. You just start seeing like, yo, this guy is like definitely different. And that was his moment. This is his moment, because if Fulton would have won, right now Fulton wouldn't be the man, and right now he's this, he's that, and this and that. But Fulton showed up. He did what he had to do. It was just not his night, and that's thanks to Inoue. Because you cannot say, oh well, Fulton just show up for the paycheck. That's kind of taking credit for Inoue for applying his game plan, for applying pressure. There was time when I was just walking him down, and walking him down, it was mentally breaking Fulton. See, for me, watching that earlier in the game, early in the day, I'm thinking like, man, it's just everything is just flowing with this guy. The way he's pressuring, the way he's applying, the way he's countering. There were times when he took some hits. Yeah, he got hit. Yeah, he showed that he's not invincible. There's some flaws in there. He looked human in there. It's not like he did it, but he picked it up. And the beautiful thing about it is, for me, is when you see somebody that they're applying the game plan, and not only they are happy with applying their game plan, they start making little adjustments to make their game plan even better. And now, first you apply your work, your game plan, and then once you get into a rhythm and you're flowing, you literally on that state of flow, then you start like kind of like putting some flashy touches, putting some highlights type of moves in your work, in your art, because it's like an art, like you're building this musical thing, and you need that partner, you need that dancing partner to kind of like push you to that level. And doesn't matter. I'm not even mad at Fulton for losing, because he never got. I never saw him retreating much. I never see him turning into survival mode up until the point where he got dropped, and then after that knockdown. But right, he was fighting like somebody that went there to win. He was fighting like somebody that wanted to keep his belt and prove himself and dare to be great.
Yeah,
and he was just there with a monster. And
he kept trying different techniques, but none of them were working. And
listen,
and that's the thing, is like, come on now, it's somebody with superior talent than Fulton,
Well, there's something there that you mentioned, Hobby, and you think about the Donaire fight, the first Donaire fight. So this guy's not just fast and strong and powerful and smart and blah blah. This guy's tough. If you think about that first fight with Donaire, I think he walked out of there with a broken orbital bone or broken jaw or broken nose or something.
They said both, jaw and orbital bone.
I think it was an orbital bone, right? Maybe
jaw and orbital bone. That's what they were saying this morning.
He took some severe damage there, kept fighting. And, for that reason, I call him pound for pound number one.
Right now, he definitely proved himself that he's a pound for pound, that he's a great, and he's definitely going to go down.
He's always been pound for pound. The other thing that I wanted to mention about Inoue is that his next fight is for an undisputed.
So I was going to bring that up, James. Yeah.
So IBF, WBA maybe, and he's got WBO, WBC now. So his next fight is for the undisputed at 122.
Yeah, so there's a plan there, and it's a great one to establish the legacy of this kid. And I love seeing that. Immediately after the fight, they brought in the other champion with the other two belts and established that they are going to now fight for undisputed, which will be, let's add up the accolades here. 4-time world champ, 4-time, 4-division, my bad, 4-division world champ,
right?
And most possibly about to be a 2-time I would say back-to-back undisputed champ. So that being said, right now, the argument is he top pound for pound in the world? Well, I gotta say, there's a fight, a little bitty fight on Saturday that actually can come into play and has a good argument for who should be the best pound for pound. Don't you guys agree?
Definitely, I agree. Yeah. But you cannot deny. Did you watch the fight today?
I watched the whole thing. You
saw my man Robesi too? Did he stink?
Did what?
Robesi Ramirez.
Robesi did well. He did really
exactly. Good. So basically, I'm so glad that you woke up, you had your coffee, and you had time to watch the little guys, and you enjoy some pure boxing. that was a magical show that we got in the morning. And man, I don't mind. I don't mind waking up to some quality boxing like that. Hey, you know what? I ain't mad at waking up at 6, 7 and watch some nice boxing. So, like, my point is, I agree with you, Rob. You definitely have a point. We saw a pound for pound today, but there's the biggest fight in terms of like commercial is definitely Crawford and Spence. There's going to be more commercial type of fans tuning into that one than the one for today. Today was for us. the boxing purists, the people that know this little guy because we've been watching this sport and we love this sport, so we're digging a little deeper. But a lot of people don't even know what's going on today as far as boxing. Everybody just waiting for the Ryan Garcias, the David Haney's, and the Crawfords and Spence. But hey, today we saw pound for pound. Saturday we're gonna see another pound for pound. It's just two different leagues, two different weight classes. Two separate guys. We have a few pound for pounds, and this is the fights that we need. This is the fights that we need because it took some time to build out Spence and Crawford. It's probably gonna take some time to build out David Haney versus Tank or Shakur. So this pound for pounds on this side of the globe, they're not really testing themselves like that. Then you have the real pound for pounds on the other side of the pond. You know what I'm saying? On the Eastern Hemisphere, and they tested themselves. They giving us the fights that we want to watch. They're willing to put their titles and the zero on the line and test themselves. So me personally, that's also part of the pound for pound. You know what I'm saying? If you're here to make money, by all means, this is a business. I understand, but pound for pound carries a heavy title, and that means that you're willing to test yourself constantly, not only by challenging the top guys, but when you get to the top, then defending your title with the top guys, not defending your titles with God knows who that got a title shot, and you get a ECD defense title, something like that. Know what I mean? So I'm gonna give the today pound for pound. Inoue, the monster, the real monster, because there's a few boxers there that call themselves a monster. No shame on them, but we already know who's the monster. I think I saw a meme too earlier. You saw that guy, that girl that saw the thing in the plane. There's a whole memes about it. I saw this meme where it's like there's a picture of Inoue, and then there's a picture of that girl in that plane, and it says something like, "Well, now we all know what she saw." A monster.
He's not real.
William Hunter.
I'm gonna see if I put it in the chat. Y'all gotta see that.
Well, William Hunter says, kind of what you were saying, Javi, and what I said. He is the pound for pound #1 fighter right now for the next 5 days. Then the shark smoking on Bud on that $69 t-shirt in my profile pics takes the thumb. Keep that same energy, William. Keep that when we do this next segment. Keep that same energy and flash that t-shirt.
I just wanted one thing from Lucas. I wanted to know from him, like what was your analysis of the fight today before we move on? Like, I didn't get to hear, like, what do you think?
I mean, you guys pretty much nailed everything as far as that. I don't want to go too far into it, but I mean, this solidified in a way. It was pretty much a shutout. I think I gave 1 round to Fulton. I believe it was the final round. Actually.
Round 7, maybe?
Right, the round right before he got stopped. 7.
He connected a few.
Yeah, and I think he did enough to win that. But other than that, shutting out Fulton just says a lot in itself. You know what I mean? I mean, that Fulton's very underrated. I think the people in the know that Fulton was going to be a tough fight. And I was surprised with how easily he was able to stroll through Fulton. So he definitely earned the moniker monster. And I think not only is that division afraid, but the division above better watch out too. I guess, I mean, honestly, as far as competition goes, I think he does have to step up again immediately. Just start looking for that bigger fight. And I know that's something new, music to your ears, isn't it, Rob?
Again, I'm gonna, his legacy to me will be cemented when he hits 130.
Oh my Lord!
All right,
but he'll be a 5-time divisional champ, 6 divisional champ if he makes it to 130.
Yeah,
and does the same thing he's doing now, which is winning unified championships. Like that's enough. Like even if you get to 130, that's like a lot of times champion. But one quick thought. I mean, they're saying that Robisi was on the card because when they wanted to introduce Robisi to the Japanese fan base because when he wins these undisputed belts in his next fight, he then wants to move up and possibly hit up Robesi's door and for another title shot. So I mean, this is like huge over there. He has those fans locked in, and it's to the point now where they are bringing in other divisional champions just so they can get a look at who Monster might face in coming up, fights. So that's pretty amazing to me that the Japanese fan base is there for him like that.
For sure. And if we went back to talking about the pound for pound, I would say this Saturday it matters more for Crawford than it does for Spence. I mean, you got to think Crawford already went back and in the 40s he unified undisputed. So him beating Spence means more than Spence beating Crawford. I think if Crawford gets it, then you disagree?
I disagree. I think it's even Steven. I think they both.
That's not the case because you got to go on past accolades, right? Just because
no, Lucas, I love you, brother, but
you don't. You don't.
Spence ain't proven a damn thing to me yet either. He ain't proven that he's the greatest yet.
Yeah.
Why? Because he ain't fought the greatest. Crawford is the greatest. Right there with Spence. This fight means the most to both men, Lucas.
I mean, let's call it what it is, though. At least Crawford has that to fall back on. Spence really doesn't. I mean, both of these resumes really aren't super thick.
I agree with that, Lucas. I agree with that. That statement there makes more sense to me because just because you have more belts doesn't necessarily mean that competitional level was, the best of the division. You got titles and you fought people that had those titles. Let's talk about, for instance, that WBA belt. Okay, so if you go back, you have to go back to Keith Thurman winning that WBA belt and then passing it to Pacquiao when he lost that belt, which then passed it to Ugas, which then passed it to Spence. So, but you see that level of competition as how it flowed through and made it to Spence.
Mm-hmm.
But then the WBC, he took that belt from Sean Porter, which I think is a legitimate, amazing contender at that time period. But then you look at it again and you're like, Bud, Porter just barely made it through Ugas in the fight previous to him fighting Spence. Mm-hmm. So yeah, now you're looking at it in a different way, whereas those titles don't necessarily mean you fought the best of the division to get it. Would it have been better if it was a Keith Thurman versus Spence fight for that WBA title? Yes, because then you have the lineal situation pulling out where he fought like the legitimate champion of that belt prior to Pacquiao, or even if he had fought Pacquiao for that belt instead of Ugas. But I mean, the thing is that they both are. I can see both of y'all points, to be honest. Now I'm on both of y'all.
Didn't I just get in trouble for that earlier?
Yes, you got in trouble for doing that, but I'm more sporadic about doing it. But Rob, in his case, what he's saying is it would mean more to Bud because he's unproven as far as he has like no top 5 welterweights on his boxing record. But then Spence, he can say he did fight some of these boxers that's in the top 5 for the division. So it's a little bit better in him saying, yeah, I'm Errol Spence. I've proven myself against some of these top 5 welterweights, whereas Bud can't. So he can't say that. But then Spence, he's gonna gain more when what Lucas is saying comes into play, because he's gonna gain more by winning because Spence has always had this Bud behind his shoulder where everybody's like, you're not better than Bud though. We want to see you fight Bud though. Like, but Bud. So he's probably gotten tired of hearing that over the years too, to the point where he wants to be able to prove that he is better than Bud specifically, which would automatically make him the best of the division. Like, I think for Spence, it's more about I can beat Bud more than it's about now I'm the number one, I'm the king of welterweights. I think for him, he's tired of hearing that nagging fan base that we're just like, no, Crawford is the best. No, he needs to fight Crawford. And then for Bud, he's like, I want all them damn belts, and I want to be able to say that I beat who everybody else thinks is the next best to me in the division. So I can see both of y'all points in that way.
Well, he did take out Sean Porter, but I'm talking about Crawford. That's one of the biggest targets that he's taken out. Other than that, his competition at welter not been that great. I think Spence has faced a lot better competition there. I wish
and a better Porter.
I wish
that's it, Lucas.
But I really wish that he had taken out Spence, not Spence, but that Spence had taken out Thurman. They just won't make that fight for whatever reason.
Yeah, because he was a unified champion at that division at first, before all the injuries and things went on. He had the WBC belt and the WBA belt, but that got split up just because of an injury. He had gave up that WBC belt. Then Danny Garcia versus Porter came into play. I mean, so I do feel like what Lucas is saying about Porter. Spence had to fight the best of Porter, whereas Crawford got the diminished version of Porter after Spence had, his like that tough fight between the two of them.
Well, I think in this matchup is that it's 50-50. I think it's dead even.
Me too. But I agree with what you're saying on that. But the caveat to that is, look, Bud was at top rank. He beat all the best top rank had to offer him. You can't punish Bud because he was under that system and couldn't get those caliber of fights.
No, we can't. Why? Because he re-signed with him. He re-signed. He knew his options, and he stayed there, meaning he did not want to pursue other competition. You know how the system works. Crawford was in that system long enough to understand how it works. He re-signed for a reason.
And that's because he truly thinks he's the best. Now, as far as Spence's deal here, what he has to deal with is that Spence thinks he's the best. And in order to do that, he has to beat Crawford. That's why I'm saying that it weighs heavily on both fighters. They both have just as much to prove. But other than that, it looks like we're going to the keys now, Lucas.
Yeah. What do you guys see as Spence's key to victory? If I'm Errol Spence, I'm saying jump on Crawford immediately. Jump on him. He seems to get caught early, right? Been dropped a couple times. Spence is a whole different ball game. It's not Hank Lundy or it's not one of these light-fisted punchers. He's going to be able to jump on him early. If he can hurt him like that, he may be able to end it early. May be able to shock the world.
I gotta disagree.
No, we got it.
I'm thinking that he's just got to outbox him for 12 rounds.
You want him to outbox Crawford. You don't think Crawford's the better boxer?
I think that if you attack Crawford, that would be a really, really big mistake.
You don't think Crawford's the better boxer, though?
I think they're both excellent. I wouldn't dare say one's better than the other at boxing. I think that if it comes down to a firefight, I think Bud has got an advantage there. So I wouldn't really run it that way like you suggest, where you just come after him. I would outbox. I would play a long game. Let's put it that way.
Before we go to the keys, then I'm interested where everybody says here. So let's talk individually about what we think, who has the lead in all of these scenarios. So speed, who you guys think is the quicker fighter?
I would say it's dead even.
Dead even?
Yep. Maybe.
No, I have to go with Bud on that one.
I think Bud has a slight. I would give a slight edge to Bud. Yeah. Power. I don't know about you guys. I'm
Spence.
leaning to Spence, right? Not by a ton, but Spence was who I would have.
I think Spence edges him out in power.
Okay.
I
Rob?
don't know. I think they're even with that. I don't remember Spence knocking out a bunch of like just one punch knockout power. I don't.
Not necessarily, but yeah, I
Yeah,
remember
like,
how bad
I
he
don't say
rocked
they probably
Porter.
even.
I mean, he got some.
I mean,
he's
just
got
look
some
how
fight.
easily he was able to get Porter, get that knockdown with Porter when his corner told him, "Hey, you behind on the scorecards." He like, what? And then he came out and he just like, he got rid of him just like that. Like when he got ready to. I think it was similar to what happened today, by the way. I feel like when Fulton had that decent round in the 7th, I think Inoue's corner was like, hey, go ahead and get rid of him now because we don't need him getting confidence in this fight. And what did he do? As soon as they came back out, he set up that body punch leading to the hook and he was gone. So I just feel like that is that type of thing where he can switch on. But and then it took 12 rounds, well, obviously Spence wasn't able to get rid of Porter. Like that was a decision loss for from Porter, which I don't agree with. But I mean he didn't get rid of Porter in that way. So I feel like they power is probably more even than people think. But based on that fight, you'd have to give Bud a slight edge.
Yeah, Crawford kind of makes up for the power with the speed. I think they kind of level back out after that. Now let's talk defense. Who has a better defense?
I'll say Crawford.
Spence.
I will go with Spence on defense.
I'm leaning towards Spence, but it is pretty close. And the only reason I say that is he doesn't get caught nearly as good. They both get caught. For some reason, Spence starts trying to look for his mouthpiece on the ground in certain fights. But I mean, other than that, yeah, I think I'm leaning a little bit towards Spence. Let's talk ring generalship.
Oh,
Bud.
Better footwork, all that.
Bud.
Well, ring generalship is a little different than footwork, though.
Yeah, and then on top of that, he can.
I'm just saying, let's wrap this all to one.
Right.
He can be orthodox or southpaw. So that's Crawford.
Yeah, Crawford. And I feel like the ring generalship we won't know until they get in there because they both, we see that whenever they fall out of the fighters, they take over, they apply their game, and they walk their walk. But when they fight each other, who's gonna, it's gonna be a back and forth. It's gonna be a chess piece. It's gonna be a situation where they're gonna somebody's gonna have to apply their game. The other one's gonna have to try to take him off while trying to apply their game. And it's gonna be a back and forth. Hopefully we get the fight lives up to the hype and we get this this tremendous fight that we hopefully get. But I feel like it's more for a boxing purist. There's gonna be a lot of high level, high IQ boxing that might not be appreciated by the naked eye. You know what I'm saying? I feel like a fan that doesn't understand what's at play might not be able to understand because they all they want is somebody get dropped in blood and drama, get up, fight again, swing, go down, a Rocky type of thing. I don't think it's gonna be that type of fight. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna be a chess play. You guys know I call this boxing porn for us.
I agree.
It's going to be something that it's really special. It's really special. And the whole thing about this is like we probably got it like a year or two later than what we wanted to, but at the same time, it's still something that is like okay, it's top guys on their prime, or undefeated things that you don't really see unless we get in it. But hey, man, I personally feel like based off their record, you can come up with a lot of possible scenarios, but it's their display of boxing and how they apply their game, how they adjust. For me, that's the one thing that I really look when I choose who I think is gonna win when I place my bets. For me, I'm looking at who has shown me that he can make adjustments, not only when he's not having the better end of the stick, but also when he's winning and he can still make adjustment just to make his performance even better. Or even if they're not having their night and everything's not going their way, they make just that minimum step or half step to get a W, to make it seem like they're the ones commanding the action. So I feel like in that department, I give Crawford a little advantage on that. But Spence has the same thing, man. That's what makes it beautiful about this fight. It's like they both about the same, and the other, or whoever has the little advantages in certain areas, the other one has the little advantages in the other areas that this person is probably might be lacking. So it's literally like, man, who's going to apply all this together? Who's going to put it all together and apply it?
I love this part of the show. And I love the fact that the fans are chiming in and that you did that segment, Lucas, breaking down the speed, power, ring generalship, because now everybody's giving us their intelligent breakdown of the fight. Guess what, though? I normally would say in a type of fight like this, Javi is exactly right. And it comes down to who has the bigger boxing IQ. However, y'all are forgetting one thing with these two fighters, which is why this is one of the great ones.
I mean, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit, Rob, because they
are dogs. This is two dogs in the ring. They want to get hit. It fuels them. It makes them fight harder. They want to inflict pain on the opponents. It fuels them harder. So when Lucas says jump on Crawford, in the beginning, yes, because Crawford fights slow. But guess what happens when he gets punched in the mouth? He responds and he inflicts that right back.
I mean, you can say that about Spence too, though.
Exactly.
Look at what happened when he got rocked.
They both
got that much angry, he wanted him out of there.
That's what makes the fight. That's what makes everything more interesting.
That's the breakdown in this fight, Javi.
Yeah, and
it's not going to be down to IQ. Hold on, it's not going to be down to IQ. It's not going to be down to ring generalship. It's not going to be down to none of those attributes like we normally see in a boxing match. It's going to come down to will and it's going to come down to will and strength, because they're both going to take it to each other. They're both going to have all those things come out in this fight with the IQ, the range, all those things. But it's going to come down with who inflicts the most pain at the right time and who can out-strength one another.
Right. It's going to be a close fight, and Crawford is weak early, right? He makes that slow start. You have to take advantage and score those points while you have them. If you don't, put the pressure on Crawford early, he can walk away with those early rounds, and then you're really not going to be allowed with nothing, because Crawford makes those changes like we talked about. He makes those changes, especially around mid-fight, and then he's going to shut you out. So you got to get that first half of the fight.
Yeah, for sure. I just feel like it may come down to just true heart. Who wants it more? Because they are so evenly yoked on most levels, then it is like a situation where you're going to come down to the mental game and who just wants it more and who's got the passion for it, who wants to be known as the best. It may come into play if the fight goes into the later rounds, but that's the type of fight that I'm actually looking forward to. That's what I want to see. Like, that's why I was so excited for seeing Inoue and Fulton, because I thought we were going to see some exchanges in that way and really get it to go. It was going to be super competitive. So the same thing, that's what I'm looking for in this Crawford versus Spence fight. It's just that competitiveness. You want to, like, you've been waiting for months and months, years, actually, to see these two go at it, and we think that it's going to be a close competitive fight. I feel like that's what's going to make it where you could have a rematch situation, if it's competitive throughout. But if one person dominates the entire fight, now it's not so much of another opportunity for them to make more money. So we have to all keep that in mind too.
I think this is probably the closest fight for an undisputed title that we've ever seen, particularly in the welterweight division. I don't even recall seeing this in the welterweight division, to be honest with you.
I think they had Oscar De La Hoya versus Shane Mosley was pretty, even. Only difference is I don't know if one of them had lost the fight at that point or if it was like both had undefeated records at that point.
I don't think we could get any closer. And, man, I think that we're in for a real treat. As far as anyone having any advantages, I think they're minuscule. I think, when it comes down to ring generalship, we'll see. We'll definitely see. But I think we're going to see a very, very close match all the way across the board for all the different categories. It's going to be too close to call.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be a close fight. So, my option for Spence would be to start early. But, guys,
real quick, let's answer these two.
Yeah.
These two. So Steve Alexander says, I just want to see a great tough fight like Leonard versus Hagler. And then CJ Hooker kind of came back with the same echo. Will we get a Leonard versus Hearns one type of fight or Duran versus Leonard one type of fight? My opinion, not to use another sport analogy, but this is Michael Jordan versus Kobe Bryant. This is the fight you want to see. I absolutely feel like we'll finally get that classic war because, like we said, it's really going to come. They both have the similar attributes. It's really going to come down to who has the bigger dog that night.
Mr. Washington says, I'll just say it's going to come down to who got the better skill set and who can make the adjustments. Now, the style, with the way the fight moves into whose style favor. And I don't know. I mean, that is tough. I think who's going to come out with the jab? The jab's going to be key. So who's going to be able to keep the other one at range and control that range? I see Spence doing it early on. Crawford slow. Crawford's going to pick it up. It's just a matter of how quick he can pick it up and how much Spence can put in the bank before then.
And to be honest, guys, I can see the fans, hoping to see a Hagler versus Hearns type of fight. I honestly don't think, first of all, I don't think that fight has any comparison. And second of all, I feel like we're probably not going to get that. But I do agree that, it could be the most highest IQ, highest level type of chess game. And also it could be something so primal and primitive where they just going toe to toe, blow for blow, and trying to push. It's gonna take different scenarios. We're gonna see a lot of things in display. That's what makes the thing unique. But at the same time, I feel like what my man said right here. The one with the better skill set, skills pay the bills. Sometimes. You have the dog in you. You're a fighter. You have your boxing abilities. You have the heart to keep going, and you train so hard because this is the biggest fight of your life, of your legacy, of your career. This is your defining moment, and I'm sure we know that both of these guys are gonna come to leave it all in there, but the ones that's gonna be able to make adjustments, to apply their stay to their game plan, at least for the most part, throughout the fight, then that's the one that's gonna win. I think there's a rematch close to CJ Hooker who say, "Hey, we might end up in a damn draw and nothing settled." We might have that too. And I wouldn't be mad if the fight is that close. If the fight is that close, yeah, I'm not even mad because I feel like if anything, if we saw one guy winning, whoever it is, but it's not really decisive. And you want to run it back, give them a draw, let it run it back, make him work harder, so the next time, whoever wins makes it more decisive. But
I want to see the rematch at 154.
But
Oh,
let
I
me
don't know
ask
about
you.
that.
Let me
I don't
ask
know
you this
about that.
That would be
question, Bobby.
badass. That would be so badass
Hold on,
if
guys.
they had a rematch and it was at the higher weight class.
That would be
Yeah, but let me ask y'all a question though. If we do see a trilogy in this, do y'all believe that whoever wins this first fight is really the best?
Not really.
not
It doesn't go like
necessarily.
that.
Not
In a
necessarily.
trilogy, it doesn't really go like that. In a trilogy, the beautiful thing about it is like you see in 3 fights, you see in 3 different dancing sessions. So now out of those 3, you can tell who's the better person in the better fighter. So that's pretty much. I'm not gonna judge of the first one or the second one or the third one or the way that they got played. I'm gonna judge based off all of them because usually, you know, when you pour a beer on a glass, what happens? The foam always comes to the top, right? It fizzles up. So the creme always gonna race to the top, no matter what, and that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, I
But
mean he's
sometimes that cream can get hit with a really good punch they did not see. And when you don't see that punch coming, that's when you get laid out.
Right.
So there is some exceptions to that rule, but yes, usually you're right. The green does go to the top. So
That's what makes
Unless you're talking to Kura when you kind of tilt the glass a little bit and you pour the beer really slow, so you make a lot of foam. I know what you're talking about.
yeah.
James,
You
what were you saying?
rarely see fighters at this level get hit with those punches. Although, like for example, with Spence, it did happen against Ugas, but that was kind of a different circumstance where he had dropped his mouthpiece. It's just one of those things because that came up after a break, so that was kind of awkward. But I just don't see this fight going, to the street. I think it's going to be very, very technical, maybe a little bit on the slower side. But if a fight breaks out, it's all fireworks. It could go either way.
Now my question also is how are we going to see Crawford? Is he going to be mostly southpaw in this fight, or is he going to go orthodox?
I'm very interested in that. That is what I'm truly interested
Because if he's
in.
going orthodox, sorry,
That's one of the unknowns, Lucas. I feel like that's one of the unknowns that we're yet to see. This is part of like this is why I'm not mad at this type of pay-per-view, even though we haven't talked about the undercard, even though they just added my man Nonito, right? They just added my man Nonito.
Yep.
And I think like the other guys, I think his name is El Mono something, the Mexican fighter.
Yeah.
I forget his name, but I know he goes by Mono, and he has another brother that fights as well. Well, I'm not mad at all of that, but at the same time, it's like we also see a lot of like that's a great fight, and maybe that fight alone can just sell at any price, a pay-per-view. But imagine if they don't get too greedy, right? Because there's gonna be a lot of money in the table. And now imagine if the promoters and the networks and all of these people in charge of things wouldn't be that greedy and would be able to spend a little more on the quality of the show. And then you have something like, I don't know, probably like imagine if we would have, for example, if we would have Crawford versus Spence, and then we would have Inoue versus Fulton on the undercard. You know what I'm saying? Then you throw something like, I don't know, maybe something like more solid.
Isak Cruz would have been a great fight if they'd have matched him up with another top lightweight. That would have been an excellent addition if they'd have matched that more evenly for Isak Cruz.
He's got some good competition in Giovanni Cabrera. Cabrera is the guy who stopped Gabriel Flores out here in California.
Right. I mean, but people are talking about whether Gabriel Flores is what he was hyped to be early on, right? So it's still a situation where we don't really know that skill level as good as we would have known, or casual fans would have known Isak versus I don't know, like I would put him with somebody else that had an actual established name at lightweight. So that's what I'm saying. It's like it just would have been a better card overall if they did. But getting back to the southpaw orthodox situation, I was thinking what will work best on Spence. Is it him being orthodox or is it him being southpaw? And the thing of it is, Southpaw. I'm trying to go back and see exactly who Spence fought that was Southpaw. There are not that many of them, actually.
Now I'm gonna tell you off the bat, Sakura. I'm gonna tell you off the bat. Southpaws are more used to fight conventional fighters.
That's
That's
true.
literally that's literally 80% of fighters, conventional fighters, and that's what they go about the whole time, the whole time. And Crawford knows this. Crawford definitely knows this. So, they're not really that used to fight southpaws because most people are conventional. I don't know how Crawford's gonna do with that information. What he's gonna have, he's gonna apply that. But I feel like if anything, I would like to see Crawford go southpaw and kind of applying that game with Spence because now not only you're taking advantage of your skills and you're applying your game, but now you're beating the dude in his own game. Remember what I said about great fighters doing great things, but they need that great partner to keep to take it to the great level.
Right.
I'm not hoping to see it, but I'm keeping my mind open, open-minded over here to see happening. If it happens, man, Crawford just next level.
I mean, that southpaw is a huge advantage in this fight when you look at Spence and the competition he's had that were previously southpaws. And that's kind of like with that left hook and that left uppercut that Inoue has. It's coming from a different. It's coming from the left instead of the right. It really confuses. It's hard for an orthodox fighter to protect themselves as much as they want to, right? They're just output by that different look. So I think that is a huge advantage for Spence if he's able to capitalize on it. James, are you with us?
Oh,
We can't hear you.
Yeah, I can hear.
I didn't say anything.
Oh, I thought you were saying something. Go ahead.
No, I'm good. No, I mean as far as the level of talent and one being southpaw or orthodox or whatever, I think Crawford does. I didn't really think that too much about that today, but just the fact that Crawford switches so well, I think that offers him a little bit of an advantage there. But I think that Spence can handle anything that he throws at him. So I just see this as neck and neck all the way across the board with that one little advantage for Crawford. That means a lot if he can switch.
So according to Kareem Wilson, it might be time to do predictions now because Kareem is over here spewing Errol Spence is the undisputed welterweight champion, bottom line, period. Well, he has to run into a Bud Crawford on Saturday, Kareem. So he's not undisputed as of yet. Go ahead.
Unified,
Lucas.
but not undisputed. I mean, we ready for predictions. I mean, the thing of it is like whether you're a unified champion and you're fighting Bud Crawford with one belt. I mean, that's the WBO belt. He's maintained that belt and defended it successfully for a very long time. I think since 2018, I believe is when he moved up in weight. I could be wrong about that, but I think it's 2018. My thing is, I really feel like it's a lot of unknowns in this fight that can play into how the outcome is. And we're not going to actually know if it's a real 50-50 type even fight. We have to account for the fact that just because Spence or even a Bud, neither one of them have fought the level of competition they're going to face Saturday night. So that's the unknown part, is we don't know how that level of competition is going to be played out for both fighters. Like, just because we haven't seen it, we think that Bud has it. We think that he's the it guy at welterweight. But Spence, he's fought some prize fighters, but it's the unseen. Is it that Crawford doesn't have the abilities that Spence has? Or is it that his opposition never took him to that level to even need to apply it. So, I mean, it's still an unknown there for both guys, in my opinion.
Who you picking, Shakura?
Awesome. I'm glad you got to that. I would just say I do truly believe that Crawford will be able to use those additional tools that Spence doesn't have to take the win. I still can't say whether it's a stoppage or if it's a decision. I think the odds are in Spence's favor if it's an early win and there's a stoppage. I think that could be more of a Spence win. If it's longer, then I'm thinking that's definitely Crawford. But I'm gonna go with Crawford overall because it is a situation like James say where you can sting him. Like when you try to punch him in the mouth, if you try to do anything to Bud, he's gonna go into that natural killer instinct mode, which could really help him or it could really hurt him. So that could go either way.
Who's next?
Well, we got CJ Hooker saying Spence by majority decision. Then we have Kareem saying Crawford has no chance at all. So we got two Spence right there. All right, Jace, speak on it, buddy.
Tell us how you really feel.
I'm going to go with Crawford, and I think he ekes out a split. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
You know, I'm going to kind of, piggyback off that because I do see Spence winning the early rounds, but Crawford's going to make his changes. I even see Crawford getting dropped. I mean, Spence does have that kind of power. Crawford's been dropped by a lot less. So look for Crawford hitting the mat early on, maybe 3-4, getting up and eking out majority decision problem.
Who next?
Javier Rob, somebody run with it.
All right, I'm gonna go with I know Rob want me to leave him for last. So I'm gonna leave him for last. He want to have the last word. I'm going to go with Crawford by a close decision, but man, again, guys, and I hate to be the breaker of bad news, or I just don't want this magnitude of event to be a victim of judges and corruption and politics and BS. I mean, like I said, I don't want to bring the negative. I don't want to bring the bad vibes, but we got to keep it real. I don't know. You guys addressed that earlier with the Kambosos thing, but there's a lot of funny things going on, especially when there's a lot of money involved, a lot of people. A lot of like, hitting people and stuff like that. So, and it's in Vegas, just like they say, if it happened in Vegas, stay in Vegas. There's another thing that says anything can happen in Vegas. So, hey, I just hope that the right man wins, but I'm gonna side with Crawford on a close decision, which I don't know who said it earlier. It might be a split decision. It might not be, but it's gonna be close, definitely.
Well, it will be close.
Yeah. Before I got to answer your dad before we move on to you there, Rob. Question: if they have any common opponents? I mean, off top Porter. I think Spence beat a better version of Porter. Crawford, at the stoppage, I wasn't really happy with, but
and Brooke.
That's just off top.
And Brooke. Kell Brook was
and Brooke was damaged that entire time for both of them, really. So,
let's see.
You're right.
Got the better.
You're right. Here's the thing. In the main one that I count, the main common opponent would be Sean Porter. Spence went the distance with Sean Porter, and it was a close bout. Whereas Crawford retired Sean Porter. I don't give a damn what you say, Lucas. The man retired right immediately after that fight.
Doesn't that speak less, though, of...
And by the way,
more about Porter getting old?
Sean Porter weighed in on who he thought was going to win this fight. He went Crawford as well. But let me go into my predictions. I honestly see this fight can end one of two ways. Okay. As said before, I feel like they're both dogs. I feel like they'll both attack each other nonstop, back and forth within the fight. But I'm looking at what happened in that Sean Porter fight where Spence actually earned a knockdown in the final round. And that really is what earned him that decision victory. That tells me that if Spence even is behind on this fight, he still has the instinct to try and get a knockout. And I certainly think he has enough power to put it together if he's really that motivated, which I feel he will be, to try and go out and get a knockout on Crawford later in the fight if he's behind. So I think it can go that direction for Spence, where that he could actually get a knockout or a knockdown, let's say, to sway the judges into giving him the fight. I also can see Crawford surprising Lucas and actually starting early and quicker, because he knows how much this fight means to him. And he takes it to Spence earlier on. And Spence, of course, gets surprised and maybe taken a little out of his game plan and have to make adjustments. And maybe it's just too little, too late, and he actually loses by a decision to Crawford.
I mean, I don't know. He hasn't started early, but I would like to see it. Go ahead.
Which way am I leaning towards? Neither. I think Terrence Crawford is so much better than anybody in the world that he has proven, because he's been hurt early in fights, because he's been attacked earlier and often, because he hasn't always gotten the better of his opponents. We've seen that heart. We've seen that will. We've seen that grit in Bud Crawford. We have not seen it in Errol Spence. He has not been attacked like that in any fight that he's ever been in. In fact, you can argue with the fact that he's dominated, other than the Porter fight, primarily every fight that he's been in. So I see Crawford wanting to come out here and make the biggest statement ever. Crawford's 11-round TKO stoppage victory.
You said 11th round?
11th round. Don't see it happening any other way. Crawford KOs him. Gets a stoppage.
Man, I gotta be honest with you, I just can't see that. I think if it's a stoppage, I think we're leaning towards Spence. I can definitely see Crawford outboxing him, you know, but that would be surprising, Rob. Let's see. Are you for Texas because you're riding hard with Carol?
I was wondering the same. Hell, he thinks both Charlo brothers can beat Canelo today.
I mean, I do feel like Jamel Charlo does have a potential chance of winning. He has a percentage rating of winning against Canelo, depending on, you know, the age and how he's able to adjust to that extra weight.
You guys
But if that extra weight don't cause him no problems, I mean, he got some skills and he got late round power. So if that power goes up with him, I think Charlo does have a chance to win.
You say Charlo? That name sounds familiar. Are they boxers?
Good question.
Damn.
Yes, and now we see why he stayed out with Zoo so long, like with the injuries. Like he was waiting to see if he really was gonna get that fight with Canelo or not. Like
so we got Crawford. I'm sorry, Javi. Who did you pick?
I went with Crawford. Close decision.
Crawford. James.
Decision. Okay.
Crawford.
And then
inching one out.
Crawford. I mean, I expected at least one or two Spences, but
Well, you remember when we got ready, when we were doing our gambling and we were putting our bets in with James, and
Right.
James and Javi was killing it.
Oh,
Both of them were like spot on a lot of fights. So James is saying by a split decision win, Crawford by a split decision win, and then Javi is saying a close decision win, both for Crawford. I think I'm on the right team. I think I better stick with Crawford.
Bud's gonna shock the world, y'all. He's gonna He's gonna shock the world.
That's right. A lot of people thinking that the shark is gonna smoke Bud, but I feel like the Bud is gonna give the shark a bad high and eat him.
Yeah, Spence is talking about a crawfish boil, and then Spence is talking about a fish fry. They are bringing out the food analogies on this one.
Yeah, I feel like Bud is gonna have fillet for munchies.
By the way,
I think that even when he wins, it's still gonna be close. I think that it's gonna be a rematch automatically. And I'm hoping that both of them, since they already want to move up, that it would be at 154.
Yeah.
Crawford all day. Am I the only one who Spence here, says CJ Hooker? Pretty much, my man.
Yes, sir, y'all alone.
No, him and Kareem is heavy on Spence.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
However,
I believe you should all pick Errol Spence, which is the right choice.
Guys, that's what I was shocked about when I asked these older boxers with, coming in for the Hall of Fame when they were getting ready to get their awards and stuff. I had Aaron Snowell, who was known for being Tyson and a couple other great fighters, trainer. He's known as the trainer of champions, but most of these people, including him, all were saying Crawford, which I thought was kind of shocking that so many of these, established boxing people and boxers as well were all going for Crawford. I thought it would be more evenly split, half for Spence, half for Crawford, but it hasn't been that way at all.
Shakur, which is why I say Spence has just as much motivation in this fight as Crawford, because you're right. A lot of people, expert-wise, think Bud is a superior boxer than Spence.
Right. And I'm like, what are they? Are they going to the gym and looking at Crawford in his, sparring sessions or something? Like they're coming to this conclusion, based on the competition that he has had. So it's kind of like, better go with that for sure.
I want to say one thing. I've never seen odds this close in a big fight like this. This is neck and neck.
Yeah.
120. Look, that is close.
Vegas, we agreed with Vegas. They have Crawford as the favorite, but Spence is not far off. I mean, like James was saying, these is really close odds.
I mean, honestly, I think it comes down to, and the odds kind of weigh this because they kind of tinker towards how people think the fight will finish, right?
Right.
And I think most people believe that it's going the distance. And because they believe that, they feel that Bud has the advantage with it going the distance.
I've heard a few people talking about the orbital bone injury and Spence not being able to fully see,
He proved that.
No, I'm just saying some people are also bringing up that issue where he's not able to see as much preferentially. They say most people, when they have that orbital bone broken, that they lose some of the views from the side. Peripheral view is a little more diminished, and so they also are factoring in that as well. I'm like, wow, you taught me something, because I didn't even know that they lost any at all, any vision at all. So I just think, Spence is talking slower too. I don't know if that's just his southern drawl for being from Texas, but it does seem like, he's a little bit slower than what he was in previous years.
I did notice that he always sounds like he's had a few cocktails.
That might be it. That actually might be it. He might actually still like a good drink.
Yeah. He's known. He likes a good drink. He likes a good drink. But I think also his demeanor. He's like he talks slow. There are people like that. There are people that talk slow, and they take their time when they putting their sentences together. And it might seem. See, sometimes we live in a world where it's high paced. Sometimes it seems like what's wrong with them? There's nothing wrong with them. They just they're flying on their own mode.
Yeah, and I understand that, being that I'm from North Carolina, and even though I'm in Florida, which is further south, is still they can tell my accent is different than other Floridians. So it's kind of like something that stays with you. And I know Texas has their own dialect as well. Unless you're transplanted in from a different area, you still have like a drawl. It's different though. It's different than a North Carolina drawl versus a Georgia or Alabama drawl. So maybe that also factors in.
Lucas,
about the
that thing you posted, Lucas, that was the odds. Does Vegas odds right now?
Those are Vegas odds right now. Yep.
Neck and neck.
But that changes all the time, and it changes as it get close to the weigh-in. It changes after the weigh-in, the day of. After they had their meal, it's a bunch of shenanigans with that.
Hey, but I'm with CJ. I'm liking those odds for the draw. I really am. I might have to put me a little down. I might have to put me a little down. I mean, it's going to be a close fight. We already know that. And, they have every reason. And by they, the proverbial they, the people with the money have every reason to make this fight a draw.
Yeah.
Well, Kareem Wilson, I want to smoke next week. Okay. you were the only one of the only ones that picked Errol, and you're big, and you've been picking him all night. If Errol wins that fight, come on the show next week and bring that smoke. But I said Crawford is gonna knock him out. So best believe that it goes both ways, buddy. I'm gonna bring the smoke too.
But we gotta invite CJ too, though, because he's been saying
the same
Spence
thing.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's saying Spence as well. So we gotta see what's up.
So Kareem and CJ, Rob's calling you out next week. Thank you all for tuning in. James, Javi, Sakura, Rob.
Real quick, shout out. Shakura helped me out. There is another entertaining women's bout this Friday on ESPN.
I forgot about Estrada.
And she's in a nice little competition bout on Friday night. So everybody tune in. We've already had a great start with the monster. Estrada is one of a kind female fighter. So definitely check her out. And then if y'all interested, check out the Oscar De La Hoya 2-part documentary series on HBO Max. It's pretty telling.
All right. Yeah. Hype that up. I definitely want to watch it. But yeah, those are the Vegas odds. Don't forget always to follow us here at Heavy Bag Boxing on all of your social media. The website again is heavybagboxing.com. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you next week, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Have a good night.